This is the original trunk carpeting. Spare tire would go in there. This little hump would hide the spare tire. But you all know what's behind here. What do you think? Now, I'm still gonna tidy all this up over here. I'm gonna redo this airline so it comes straight up and then into the unit. I'm gonna put my AccuAir E-Level CPU right here to kind of balance everything out, and I think it'll look pretty good.
That was the task I've been putting off until I was forced to stop putting it off. There's 3 reasons that I'm redoing my air ride wiring. Number 1, because of that rat's nest. Number 2, I need to relocate my air ride ECU. And number 3 is because I almost burned my damn trunk down because of this. All right, so here's what we got.
Pull this out. So this is the cause of the problem. Ooh, you see that? I just broke it. Actually, this wasn't the cause. This is the result of the problem. I'm gonna just throw this on the floor. This cable originally, if anybody followed along with the bill, you know that I have my battery back here, my deep cycle, and it feeds power for my air ride, for the compressors and for the stereo and all that stuff back there. This cable was going from my power distribution block over to my relay. And I noticed when me and my brother were out, this was maybe a month or so ago, I kept smelling something burning, okay? And if you ever had electrical smell, you kind of know that smell. But I was smelling it in the cabin, so we had actually stopped to get gas and looked in the trunk, and I'm like, man, my compressor was running. I could see that the terminal over here, which is the power feed from the battery, was just hot, and it was just melting. I was checking it out, and come to find out, the terminal on this side was actually loose. And it wasn't the top nut, it was the bottom nut. Well, I guess both then, because they weren't tight. With vibration, it was actually not getting a good connection, and the failure point was on this cable because it had heated up, and the terminal that was crimped onto this cable was loose, and so it was basically melting back into this cable. I went ahead and replaced this cable with this one, and I want it red to show positive, but anyway. But the first thing I'm going to point out is that the difference between this cable, and they're the same gauge, is that when you buy your power cables, and you can look them up, some of them are copper coated aluminum, and that's what this was. So it did not like being heat cycled. So basically it pretty much just burned all the copper off, smoked all the copper off, and melted the aluminum. If you're running something that doesn't draw a lot of amps, then this is perfectly fine. But with the compressors, you put on 80, 85 amps through that relay. So you don't want to use cheap wire. And that's what I did. So I'm just checking wires, and I'm looking at my split loom, and I'm like, okay, this is looking a little bit deformed. So this is the power wire that's coming from the relay up here. It's going around here and then back down here. Then I had a split to go into one compressor. I already cut this. That was going to the compressor on the left. So the one on the right, one on the left. I'm noticing this wire. Look at that. And that red on there is leftover jacketing from this wire, from my left compressor. So this thing really heated up. Now, is the problem the compressor, or is it my wiring? Now, I am a low voltage guy, and I actually kind of did a no-no, because when you're wiring something like this, your ground is very important. But I had this ground tying into the same ground as the compressor over here on the right, coming back through this wire, which is a bigger gauge than the compressor wiring, going up and around all the way over here to my ground block. Then you see the size of that cable, and it goes back to the negative on my auxiliary battery. And that battery actually goes down behind here. My carpet goes out that grommet down there, and it's grounded to the chassis and to the body. That's a long ground. You should keep your ground as short as possible, and I'm thinking that might be a cause of some of my issues too. What I'm going to do is, I think this I'm going to replace it, but I am going to pop this open and rebuild it, rewire it so I can have a spare, and I'm going to make my ground short. I'm going to ground it to this side of the chassis over here, and I'm going to do the same with the compressor. I've already removed this fuse, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just remove the positive terminal on the battery. It's a deep cycle Optima. Altima. It's not an Altima. A deep cycle Optima, and I put that in along with an isolation relay. So this doesn't draw from the car's battery, but the alternator will charge this battery. So, and I love these connectors too. I'll put a link to the Amazon where I got these, but I like them because it goes over the post, and then it's got terminals to where you can come off of it with however many connectors you need, or cables that you need. Same with the negative side. But the cool thing is that just take an Allen wrench and loosen it up here, and it just comes off. So that's slick in itself. So I'm gonna sit this down here, and that way I know I don't have any power going to any of these cables up there, so I won't be shorting anything out. And first thing I'm gonna do is take this split looming off, well, maybe till here, because that's where my positive and my ground comes in. What I'm gonna do is just cut these. I'm gonna disconnect my cutoff switches. Well, one's for my tank pressure, and the other one is for high pressure cutoff. So when it gets to 200 psi, it shuts off the compressors. Disconnect this. This one actually goes to the AccuAir CPU. Now on these, it's as simple as pushing that connector in and pulling the hose out. But once you pull it out, if you see this, you can see the shadow, see the line right there? Once you pull that out, you can't reuse it. You have to cut it farther back, because this is actually, this could actually leak. Just an FYI. First thing I'm gonna do is take this hose off. These are machine screws with washers and nuts. Even though this is a piece of wood, I didn't use wood screws, because these things do vibrate, even though they have rubber feet on them. You see where that went. I'm not too proud to show you something that could have been avoided. This ground should have been like that long, grounded right to the body. And I'm guessing that's it. This is what they give you for the wiring on these. So you have a ground there, just a spade connector there. Usually you'll stick that, if you're gonna just run one compressor and use the relay, you instead of a solenoid like I use. That can plug right on the relay itself. But so that'll be getting cut, and I'll be using that to ground it right to the chassis. For this wiring, and this is usually hidden behind my little decorative carpet that I cut out from the tire cover. I'll kind of give you guys an overview of this AccuAir CPU. Basically what it does, it takes the place of just a manual handheld air control that you keep up in the car with you, which that usually plugs into here, but instead this does the controlling for you. And the plugs on the back are all modular. So this plug actually goes up to the air manifold. Left front, left rear, right rear, up, down. This is where the new controller plugs in, and it has the preset. In the back here, the green and red wires, those go to the ride height sensors at all four corners. This plug here is simply for your power, your ground, your compressor monitor, your PSI monitor for your compressor. And this will shut your compressor off as well as the high pressure switch. I'd say plug and play, but you do have to calibrate it to your ride height sensors. You can set your presets, which I really like, because that way you know how low you're riding. So go check out the video that I did on this when I installed it. I mean, to me it's worth it. It's a little pricey, but it does what it's supposed to do. Oh, plus it has a phone app. Just kind of bells and whistles. I'm gonna get this whole mess of wire shortened up because I actually want to mount this right over here. And I found this guy on eBay that makes this bracket. I think it'll look good right there. Then I'm gonna tidy these up. I got some elbows, so instead of coming out with the curve, and I got plenty of slack underneath there, so I think I'm going to come up and just elbow into the manifold. So I got everything buttoned up. Got my ground, short ground, which I think that, along with the loose wire on the solenoid, got my wires fried. Anyway, got my ECU mounted up in the center. Got my short ground on this one for the right compressor. And so I think I'll fire it up. Before I couldn't even touch the solenoid